Please join with me in prayer. God, you are our Alpha and Omega, a God of beginnings, of creation, of birth, of surprising possibility. God of new things, we are humbled by your presence with us here at Vanderbilt Divinity School. We are grateful for your grace as we begin our journey with new students, new colleagues, and our new dean. And we are thankful that when we feel stuck, you are there to remind us to begin again, to revisit the power of our creation narratives. O God of endings, you are also a God of callings, of ultimate goods, of lives worth living, and deaths worth dying. God of the telos, we are humbled by the daunting gift and responsibility of theological education. We are grateful for your invitation into journeys that seek an end, and for communities that encourage the paths that take us beyond our own ends. And we are thankful that you continuously invite us to live apocalyptically, disrupting the seeming inevitable in favor of living into a new kingdom. God, as we recall you as Alpha and Omega, we also invoke you as our Lambda, a God of ordinary time, of daily wrestling, of energy that sustains. You are the solidarity in the struggle. God of connection, we are humbled by the challenge of loving our neighbors, those who dwell beside us in all their complexity and diversity. We are grateful that we don't embark on any journey alone, but always are accompanied and renewed by your Spirit, in tears and in laughter, with brave companions of the road. We are also thankful that ultimately you are beyond our names for you. You call us into our mutual mystery, and into the mystery you ever unfold as we discover the divine. May we embrace that challenge and celebrate that extraordinary gift. And in all the phases of our lives together, let us begin again and again. Let us end without ceasing, and let us dwell, caught and set free by the Lambda of our God. Amen.
Oh, God, help me, agents. Chancellor Zeppos, Dean Towns, Professor Attridge, members of Dean Towns' family, local clergy, faculty, students, and staff of the Divinity School, members of the university community, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I think we need to thank the Temple Church Choir. This day marks an important milestone in the illustrious history of the Vanderbilt Divinity School, the installation of the school's 16th dean. The appointment of Emily Towns to this leadership position is a great moment, and I thank all of my colleagues from the Divinity School for allowing the university community to take an active and engaged part in this great celebration. Our next speaker will address many of the reasons for our excitement and our great joy. I have the pleasure this evening of introducing Nicholas S. Zeppos, Vanderbilt's 8th Chancellor. And I like the symmetry with number 8 introducing number 16. I just like that. Chancellor Zeppos is a native of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he received his undergraduate and law degrees from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. And anyone who knows Nick knows how proud he is to be a double Badger. He practiced law in Washington, D.C., and also worked as a lawyer in the Justice Department, and on occasion represented the United States of America in court. In 1987, a very fortunate thing occurred. Nick and his wife drove from Washington to Nashville to continue their lives together, the lives of their family, at Vanderbilt and in Nashville. He began as an assistant professor of law, but quickly moved through the academic ranks and also served his school as associate dean. During this time, he received 5 teaching awards, and I assure you, if he had not gone to the dark side and moved into Kirkland Hall, there would be at least 5 more to follow. I have met many of his former students. I have walked in on parties that Chancellor Zeppos has held for some of his former students during reunions. And there is a reverence, but also an appreciation for the joy and the passion and the excitement that he brought to the classroom in preparing these students to be members of the bar. Chancellor Zeppos joined the office of the provost after serving in the law school, first as associate provost, with a focus actually on undergraduate affairs. He was then promoted to provost and vice chancellor for academic affairs in 2002. At that same time, he was also responsible for all of the development activities for our university. On August 1st, 2007, he was named interim chancellor by our board chair at the time, Martha Ingram. That quickly became I-Chancellor, and he was an amazing I-Chancellor until after a national search, he was named Vanderbilt's 8th Chancellor on March 1st, 2008. If we could magically transport ourselves into the future and write the recent history of Vanderbilt University. Our Chancellor's indelible mark would be seen in many, many places. I'd like to point out just three that I am especially in awe of. First, he believed in the Ingram Commons for our first-year students when you couldn't put the other believers into a phone booth and not have extra room. He saw the great potential that has now been beautifully realized since 2008, when our first class of freshmen entered the Commons, and the rest is a wonderful, wonderful history. In 2009, he launched a financial aid plan that committed this university to meeting the full demonstrated need of our undergraduate students and prevented them from graduating with the punishing debt that is all too often the case with many undergraduates who leave college into the present. It's a national challenge, and one he saw early on as something Vanderbilt absolutely had to address. The third major commitment that he has made is to the College Halls program at Vanderbilt. And the two most recent manifestations of that are rising right now at the intersection of West End Avenue and 21st Street. And on the site of the old Kassam Quad, we will have students entering next August to live in this dynamic environment that will bring them together to create community and to do wonderful things to promote the collegiality and the civility that we so deeply cherish at this university. I ask you now to please join me in welcoming to the podium Chancellor Nicholas S. Zeppos.
Well, Richard, that was far too kind and far too long. But there are days that are long for me as well, and your friendship and your leadership and your kind words sustain me always. I also want to thank Richard for his amazing energy and focus and outreach when he began this search, and the kind of open heart, the open mind that he brought to this national, international search for a leader, and to say, how can we be even better? How can we do things that are even more transformative for our community, our Vanderbilt community, our Nashville community, our Tennessee community, America, the globe. And so, Richard, you are really a far too modest individual, and I want to thank you for this great search. It's a joyous day. It's a wonderful day. It's a day of hope. It's a day of celebration. It's a day of affirmation. It's a day of community. It's a day of history. We're installing a leader at our Divinity School. Emily, I did come here a long time ago, and there are going to always be tough days, and we're all there with you. But I always say it was the best decision I ever made. And you have my word that you will serve with great distinction, and you will say, this was the best move that I ever made. So we're making history, so let's talk a little bit of history. So we're a relatively young university, I like to say, 1870s, as modern private universities go. That's, kind of middle age. When they formed the university in 1873, they got right to work and said, what are the really important things we're going to do here? And in 1875, right after the founding, they said, we need a divinity school. Originally known as the Biblical Department of Vanderbilt in 1915, with the Board of Trust approval, the Biblical Department became the Divinity School with its own dean and faculty. And I always kind of look at these wonderful schools like, growing beautiful human beings, reaching potential. And I always worry, it's like, well, was I the first school? Or, well, you named me in 1915. And I always kind of chuckle. I see Carol Endeavor, the Dean of Arts and Science. There wasn't even a College of Arts and Science at the time. And so what a bold step to create the Biblical Department and then to have the board rename this great school with its own faculty, its own dean, the Divinity School. So what do we do here? Why is this so important? How does one combine scholarship, inquiry, investigation, endless curiosity, the making of claims, the establishment of knowledge, the challenging of knowledge, with spiritual growth, growing as an individual, growing from within and without, and bringing that together? And then to think of the broader mission. I'm learning. Knowledge is created. I'm growing spiritually. What is my role in broader society? To combine that then with social justice, with mutual understanding, with cultural understanding, to go out into the world and send leaders out into the world with knowledge, with spiritual growth, and then with passion, with curiosity, with a constant sense of learning and trying to do good. That's what our Divinity School does. And the Divinity School is one of the 10 schools of Vanderbilt, but in what it does is really setting the tone, articulating the values every day through our history for what the university stands for. A level of curiosity in civil discourse, a presumption and interest in others, to include others, to bring people together, to find integrity in everything you do, to look at everybody and say, we are all in this together. I respect you greatly. Is that something we have in common? Always, because it's necessary every day, caring for one another, to reach out and say, I respect you. You're part of me. I want to provide care to you. And that sense of community, that sense of collegiality, why we're all gathered here today, to come together not simply as individuals, but as a community, to say, we're all colleagues, we're all friends. That's what Vanderbilt tries to stand for, and that's what the Divinity School stands for every day. They are integral to our mission of teaching, research, and service. Leadership does matter. Leadership really matters. And those who are willing, particularly in the academy, to perhaps give up a little bit of the autonomy of being a full-time professor, to have the passion to work with colleagues to forge a path forward in these great institutions. They're distinctive individuals, and they're rare individuals. And we are very fortunate to have found and to be installing today a great dean. In Reverend Dr. Emily M. Towns, we have chosen a leader who in act and deed, in writing, in speaking, who personifies our mission. I am honored today to recognize her, to participate in this invocation ceremony as the new dean of the Divinity School at Vanderbilt University. We are so fortunate. We are so fortunate. She has been recognized nationally and internationally for not only her scholarship and writing, but for her leadership, for trying to play a broader role as president of the Society of Black Religion, her election in the presidential line of the American Academy of Religion, and prestigious induction as a fellow in the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She understands deeply how to connect with other people. She understands deeply the principle of inclusiveness, the beauty of humanity, the beauty of our world, and the complex nature of the differences that we have, but always trying to weave together that fabric of inclusion and beauty. She understands that each of us is bestowed with unique gifts and unique qualities, and that those unique gifts and qualities are to be cherished, are to be nurtured, and are to be very much a part of the collective human experience. Now, Emily comes to us with a astounding academic background. I talked about the leadership positions. The very first, Andrew W. Mellon, professor of African American religion and theology at Yale University's Divinity School. When you fill a chair, it really has to be with a scholar of great distinction. When you're the first holder of the chair, particularly I would say an Andrew Mellon chair, you really have to get the right person in there, because everyone will say, we all flow from that person, and that was Emily. In 2008, she became the first African American and the first woman to serve as the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at Yale Divinity School, and I know Yale and Yale Divinity School just that much better, that much greater, that much kinder because of Emily. We are just fortunate, I will say, in the presence of all of you, blessed to attract this renowned scholar and professor. Her impact as dean will only be strengthened by her personal qualities, her expertise, her passion, and her humility, her own doubts about how does one negotiate through these complex institutions that are so great. I cannot imagine a better leader for the Divinity School, and I simply, insofar as I have a writ to do so, I would like to congratulate and welcome Emily Towns as we begin this new academic year, and I look forward to all the work we will all do together with Emily in the years ahead. Thank you so much.
In an academic galaxy many states away, in a time not too long ago, in fact, it seems like just yesterday, I had the pleasure of working with Emily Towns in the administration of Yale Divinity School. We were a happy, and I like to think, effective team for 4 productive years. During that time, Emily got into the habit of referring to me as Obi-Wan. I like to think it was because of my prowess with a budgetary lightsaber. But I suspect it was just the Alec Guinness-like beard that prompted the epithet. I suppose I should be thankful that she didn't call me Yoda. In any case, when Emily asked me to be part of the program for today's ceremony, I was delighted to accept and agreed to do for her as the original Obi-Wan did for Luke Skywalker. More precisely, Emily told me that my assignment was to say something about what she should keep in mind as she assumes her responsibilities as dean. I initially thought I might give her detailed instructions on budget preparation, institutional planning, time management, and other such skills, which of course would be just fascinating for you all to hear. But after 10 years in the decanal saddle, I've been on sabbatical for the last year, and to tell the truth, I've worked very hard to forget all of those administrative skills. So I turned instead to my recollections of the original Obi-Wan for inspiration. Now, think about it just a little bit. The space epic was not initially very promising as a model for decanal leadership. As you no doubt recall, Obi-Wan, after teaching Luke how to fire up a lightsaber, did not in fact give the young space cadet any detailed advice. Moreover, the analogy between assuming the deanship of a divinity school and obliterating a Death Star is not very strong. Well, not in every way. True, university administrators can from time to time look like stormtroopers, or even perhaps Darth Vader. Present company excluded, of course. I remember what one of my respected colleagues and former dean at Yale told me, not at Yale Divinity School, of another institution there, when I first took the helm at YDS. "Keep in mind, Harry," he said, "that strong provosts steal from weak deans and vice versa. So decide what you want to be." That witty gentleman served for 10 years as the dean of Yale Law School and still sits as a federal judge. Well, there may be a kernel of truth in his advice. I don't think it applies here. I'm sure that the university officers at Vanderbilt who have given Emily such a warm welcome today and in the past several months realize what a gem they have in her and in the Divinity School, and will help Emily to obtain whatever resources she needs to make this school thrive. No, as I say, the analogy between becoming a dean and dropping a torpedo in the exhaust pipe of a Death Star is pretty remote. Although, Emily, from time to time you may have to focus your energies and your attention on some difficult-to-attain goal and take careful aim to hit your mark. But at the end of the day, you're not in the business of creating death and destruction. Your task is not the first part of the command that Jeremiah received, to pluck up and to pull down, to destroy and to overthrow. No, it is the final part of the prophet's call, to plant and to build. You are called here to nourish and encourage faculty, students, and staff. You are called here to think long and hard about the future and to envision what it can be. You are called here to foster and support, balancing interests and mediating what can be legitimate but conflicting hopes and aspirations. To perform that constructive and nourishing task, you will have to listen attentively, sympathetically, but of course critically, to friends and critics alike. You will have to pay careful attention to how the role of the churches is changing in the complexities of the 21st century. You'll have to think about how communities of Christian conviction are interacting with other religious traditions. You will have to find the words to persuade and to inspire not only your colleagues and students, but your supporters and friends whose generosity has been and will continue to be a critical part of this school's success. Obliterating a galactic threat would be probably a much easier task than what you have committed to undertake. As I think about all that you have agreed to do, I come back to the one bit of advice that Obi-Wan did actually give Luke. Even Generation Xers probably know the iconic scene that I have in mind. As Luke speeds into the Death Star, he hears the disembodied voice of Obi-Wan, who tells him, in effect, "There is no formula, Luke. Go with your instincts, and the Force will be with you. And yes, Emily, this Obi-Wan will tell you the same thing. Go with your instincts, for they are just right for this job. I don't need to tell you, you already know that you have to plant and to build. You have a great foundation on which to do so, and you know what it takes to make that foundation flourish. You know because there is already a strong force with you, not the pseudo-stoic electromagnetic field that George Lucas conjured up. No, the force that is with you is the power of God, which Paul celebrates in Romans. The gospel that calls to a life of radical justice and fierce love. That force is the good news mediated to you by those faithful African-American men and especially women of your childhood, whom you often celebrated with us at Marquand Chapel, and whom you will no doubt celebrate here. They knew, and you know, how to listen patiently, think creatively, mediate lovingly, and act decisively. Follow the force that is in your very bones, and all will be well at Vanderbilt Divinity School.
Psalm 139. O Lord, you have searched us and known us. You know when we sit down and when we rise up. You discern our thoughts from far away. You search out our paths and our lying down and are acquainted with all our ways. Even before word is on our tongues, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem us in behind and before and lay your hand upon us. Such knowledge is too wonderful for us. It is so high that we cannot attain it. Where can we go from your spirit, or where can we flee from your presence? If we descend to heaven, you are there. If we make our beds in Sheol, you are there. If we take the wings of the morning and settle at the furthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead us, and your right hand shall hold us fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover us, and the light around us shall become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. For it was you who formed our inward parts. You knit us together in our mother's wombs. We praise you, for we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that we know very well. Our frames were not hidden from you. When we were being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth, your eyes beheld our unformed substance. In your book were written all the days that were formed for us, when none of them as yet existed. How mighty to us are your thoughts, O God! How vast is the sum of them! We tried to count them. They are more than the sand. We come to the end. We are still with you. Oh, that you would kill the wicked, O God, and that the bloodthirsty would depart from us. Those who speak of you maliciously and lift themselves up against you for evil. Do we not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do we not loathe those who rise up against you? We hate them with perfect hatred. We count them our enemies. But search us, O God, and know our hearts. Test us and know our thoughts. See if there is any wicked way in us, and lead us in the way everlasting.
This is a late poem of Gwendolyn Brooks called Paul Robeson. That time we all heard it, cool and clear, cutting across the hot grit of the day. The major voice, the adult voice, foregoing rolling river, foregoing tearful tale of bale and barge and other symptoms of an old despond. Warning in music words devout and large, that we are each other's harvest, we are each other's business, we are each other's magnitude and bond.
Good evening. It is my honor to offer these poetic words of reflection chosen by our dean to consecrate this auspicious occasion. I am accused of tending to the past by Lucille Clifton. I'm accused of tending to the past as if I made it, as if I sculpted it with my own hands. I did not. This past was waiting for me when I came. A monstrous, unnamed baby, and I, with my mother's itch, took it to breast and named it history. She's more human now, learning languages every day, remembering faces, names, and dates. When she is strong enough to travel on her own, beware, she will. Ashe.
And it is my pleasure and honor to offer a reading from Alice Walker's In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. And so our mothers and grandmothers have, more often than not anonymously, handed on the creative spark, the seed of the flower they themselves never hoped to see, or like a sealed letter they could not plainly read. And so it is certainly with my own mother. Unlike Ma Rainey's songs, which retained their creator's name even while blasting forth from Bessie Smith's mouth, no song or poem will bear my mother's name. Yet so many of the stories that I write, that we all write, are my mother's stories. Only recently did I fully realize this, that through years of listening to my mother's stories of her life, I have absorbed not only the stories themselves, but something of the manner in which she spoke, something of the urgency that involves the knowledge that her stories, like her life, must be recorded. It is probably for this reason that so much of what I have written is about characters whose counterparts in real life are so much older than I am. But the telling of these stories, which came from my mother's lips as naturally as breathing, was not the only way my mother showed herself as an artist. For stories, too, were subject to being distracted, to dying without conclusion. Dinners must be started, and cotton must be gathered before the big rains. The artist that was and is my mother showed itself to me only after many years. This is what I finally noticed. Like Mem, a character in The Third Life of Grange Copeland, my mother adorned with flowers whatever shabby house we were forced to live in. And not just your typical straggly country stand of zinnias either. She planted ambitious gardens, and still does, with over 50 different varieties of plants that bloom profusely from early March until late November. And before she left home for the fields, she watered her flowers, chopped up the grass, and laid out new beds. When she returned from the fields, she might divide clumps of bulbs, dig a cold pit, uproot and replant roses, or prune branches from her taller bushes or trees until it was too dark to see. Whatever she planted grew as if by magic, and her fame as a grower of flowers spread over 3 counties. Because of her creativity with her flowers, even my memories of poverty are seen through a screen of blooms: sunflowers, petunias, roses, dahlias, forsythia, spirea, delphiniums, verbena, and on and on. And I remember people coming to my mother's yard to be given cuttings from her flowers. I hear again the praise showered on her, because whatever rocky soil she landed on, she turned into a garden.
a garden so brilliant with colors, so original in its design, so magnificent with life and creativity that to this day, people drive by our house in Georgia, perfect strangers and imperfect strangers, and ask to stand or walk among my mother's art. I notice that it is only when my mother is working in her flowers that she is radiant, almost to the point of being invisible, except as creator, hand and eye. She is involved in work her soul simply must have, ordering the universe in the image of her personal conception of beauty. Her face, as she prepares the art that is her gift, is a legacy of respect she leaves to me for all that illuminates and cherishes life. She had handed down respect for the possibilities and the will to grasp them. For her, so hindered and intruded upon in so many ways, being an artist has still been a daily part of her life. This ability to hold on, even in very simple ways, is work Black women have done for a very long time.
It is my great pleasure to introduce our new Dean, Emily Towns, whose wonderful influence is already felt on this service. I've known Emily for 35 years. Oh! Ever since we were novice graduate students in the late 1970s at the University of Chicago, negotiating community living at the Disciples Divinity House North. And I have to say, we bonded over mutual annoyance at a zealously chirpy housemate who unfailingly greeted both of us in the morning, early morning, women's bathroom, with a sing-song, "Good morning," until one day we imitated her and put an end to that. So on that one good laugh, we have sustained a long friendship, crossing paths at the Society of Christian Ethics, where she served in many esteemed capacities, including the board of directors, at the American Academy of Religion, where her role as president in 2008 didn't change in any way how she greeted me, and more recently on the Luce Advisory Committee, where we have had the privilege of guiding the award of the prestigious Henry Luce Research Fellowship in Religion, a distinction she herself received in 2005. Now, living in Disciples House in the late 1970s as the first women allowed in a housing facility previously restricted to male residents is only one among Emily's many firsts, as you have already heard. She was the first African American woman to serve as president of the AAR, the first woman and first African American to serve as associate dean for academic affairs at Yale Divinity School, Yale's first Andrew Mellon Professor of African American Religion and Theology, and now the first African American dean in a school and a location with both a troubled and a redemptive race history. Yet, to me, she passes such milestones without the least hint of becoming what New Testament Paul calls puffed up. As if they're no big deal just tasks or part of a call that has come her way, and she is more than willing and happy to fulfill. An internationally recognized architect of womanist theology and ethics, Emily has made scholarly contributions on healthcare, economic justice, cultural and literary theory, and African American women's lives with groundbreaking books such as Womanist Ethics and the Cultural Production of Evil, Breaking the Fine Reign of Death, African American Healthcare, and a Womanist Ethic of Care. But she is not only a prolific author, she's also a convener and editor of shared womanist scholarship, a prized teacher and administrator, and a great citizen of the Academy and the Church. So it's not surprising in 2009 that she was elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, one of our nation's oldest and most respected honorary societies, and in 2011, the Divinity School at Chicago honored her as Alumna of the Year. On this important occasion, I want to also lift up how much of a fit Emily is for Vanderbilt Divinity School. Along with her marital partner, Laurel Snyder, who we also welcome to our religion department, she models in her personhood and background so many of the values and commitments for which this school stands. She comes from a family of academics. Both parents were college professors, and her mother served as dean at North Carolina Central University, where she taught for over 40 years. Ordained in American Baptist clergy, she has also has a deep commitment to congregational and social ministries. She's a native of North Carolina, so she knows about living in the South and sees her return as a homecoming. She brings a wealth of experience in a rich variety of settings: St. Paul's School of Theology, Union in New York, and Yale, giving her a unique bird's eye view on the state of seminary and university doctoral education. Years ago, I don't know if you remember, but when Emily was at St. Paul and I was in Chicago, I joined colleagues trying to entice you to move. And even then, she did not take vocational moves lightly. She has been selective and measured about these decisions. And when I bumped into good friends from Yale this spring, they uniformly mourned her departure and celebrated our coup. So I consider Vanderbilt very fortunate indeed. Steadfast and steady, open, receptive, available, gracious, ready to laugh, honest, even-keeled, unflappable, down to earth, astute, observant, and incisive, committed to fairness and justice at every turn. These are just some of the many qualities I've noticed and appreciated over these 35 years that are the makings of a great deanship. 10 years ago, my son liked to tell people that he was related to a star NFL quarterback because his uncle's ex-wife's younger sister was married to one. Well, I have enjoyed saying that I knew Emily Towns way back when she was brushing her teeth in the early morning dormitory hours. Maybe not an auspicious beginning, but on this momentous occasion, I am so glad to be welcoming her to the Divinity School for what I believe will be more than an auspicious and lively tenure as our new dean. So join me now in welcoming the Dean and the E. Rhodes and Leona B. Carpenter Professor of Womanist Ethics and Society, Emily Towns.
Please sit down. I got a little verklempt. I want to begin by remembering those who are here in spirit. Nana, Dad, Uncle Pete, Mom, Uncle Sonny, Aunt Aggie, Johnny Butler, and so many more. And I want to acknowledge, hey y'all, my friends and colleagues at Yale Divinity School who have gathered in one person's home around a computer monitor to watch this service. That is above and beyond the call. Thank you for all you've been and all you will continue to be in my life. And to students and colleagues and friends who could not be here and may be watching or may not be watching, I carry you with me, so I want to remember you as well. And those gathered here, I want to ask my family to stand right here on the first row. Everybody on the first row. Claudia Highball. It's so good to gather around a celebration and not a homegoing. Thank you for being here. And I want my partner, you can sit down. I want my partner, Laurel Schneider, to stand. In many ways, I am because we are. Thank you. Thank you. And to the musicians and choir. Oh, I can't say that in chat. Thank you. Thank you. One of the things that I have always cherished in services, worship services of any kind, is music that gets me singing along, because, I can't sing. So I'm just mouthing along like I'm singing with the choir, and you all did it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And to the musicians, thank you. To my colleagues on the platform, or as we started referring to them, Emily and the guys. Thank you. Kind words, kind words. Incredible words. And to all the folk, Amy Steele and company. If I start naming names, I'm going to miss somebody. So I don't want to do that, but I do want to acknowledge Amy's role in keeping me out of trouble in this service. Amy and everyone who has gone into making this an incredible afternoon for me. From the folks in our suite, to the development and alumni office, to public affairs, to admissions and financial aid, to the GDR, so many more, the Turner Center. It just goes on. In other words, you get a sense. This is a community. And I am so glad that I have this bunch of folks as my colleagues now. What a faculty. And just watch us in what we do over the next 5 years. I'm not promising anymore. The next 5 years. So let me begin. When I was in 3rd grade, I decided to read every book in my elementary school's library. Looking back, I cannot say just how large an undertaking that was at the time. Vanderbilt Street Elementary School was like many black public schools of that era, segregated by color and resources, contained in one large room that I thought was huge through my 8-year-old eyes. Like so many of the spaces of my youth that appeared huge at the time, it has tended to shrink in size as I have aged. But then it was an enormous room. And even better, it was an enormous room filled with books. Our teachers, like Mrs. Carter and Ms. Walker, paid for things to supplement our learning out of their paychecks. And all of the kids ended every sentence we spoke to an adult with ma'am or sir. I'm not sure I undertook this challenge as a quest for knowledge, though that was sure to come. No, I thought of it as a great adventure, to see if I could read every book before I left for junior high as a way of testing my reading ability and the fact that the books were there, calling to me as one of those odd children, as many adults would say, who loved reading and mourned each summer's coming because that meant school was out and the fun of organized learning was 3 long months away. So I set off on my adventure, starting from the far side of the library near the 4th grade classroom, picking up book after book. The first sections of books were Greek and Roman mythologies. I had never heard of such from Reverend Moore's weekly sermons, and certainly not in Ms. Minor's Sunday school class. More than one God? People actually believe that? Gods could be capricious, not the Holy of Holies I knew. Gods could marry, mere blasphemy. But I kept reading. And somewhere in the midst of that first section of books, I became aware of the fact that my world was expanding. I did not always understand it. I couldn't really articulate it, but I had this sense of more. More than Federal Street, or 101 West Alton Street, or Otis Street, or the Bottom, or North Carolina Central University began to grow. My parents were watching me closely, but not commenting. That was their way. Being college professors, they believed in reading and letting me explore ideas, unless they thought I was headed down a decidedly bad path. My parents looked at the library books I brought home and steeled themselves to answer questions they thought I might ask. My teachers monitored my progress with casual weekly check-ins, which were not nearly as casual as I thought. They were cheering me on, but giving me space to follow my quest without the pressure of letting me know they were proud of me. It was wonderful, simply wonderful, to have my world open up and be in a space where I was being encouraged by my teachers and guides and by my parents. And this was perhaps the greatest gift I have received from being in school, the gift of loving to learn. And knowing that this flourishes when students are either given or craft for themselves a space where this can happen. Not so much Virginia Woolf's room of one's own, but a space that may be more psychic than physical if resources are slim or the environment one lives in is more threatening. A space for learning, exploring, questioning, answering. A space that if we tend it with care, invite others to share in how we gain knowledge, and it becomes a classroom that grows into a school. But this was my personal quest, and I loved carrying it on by myself until I hit the encyclopedia at the far side of the room, just a few shelves away from attaining my goal. It was late in my 4th grade or early in my 5th grade year that I braced myself as I picked up the first World Book Encyclopedia and began to read. It was in the S volume when I hit the article on slavery. Actually, it was like a gut punch. This was 1964 or 5. I was old enough to understand fire hoses and sit-ins and picketing and marches and President Kennedy's assassination. I was being raised by parents, proud Black parents, who took great pride in instilling in me and the students they worked with at North Carolina Central University to carry yourself with dignity, as did the other adults in our community, mostly, and in my church. And they took great pride in passing this on to us. What did I find that sucked the wind out of me in that article? Cartoonish and offensive caricatures of Black folk eating watermelon, stereotypes of smiling Black folk working in the field with tattered clothes, a monstrous cavalcade of Sambos and Mammies and Pickaninnies. With all the righteous indignation that a 9 or 10-year-old can muster, I went to the librarian and my teacher with my fingers marking the page in the encyclopedia. They could tell from my face that something was wrong. All I could do was open the page and say, "This is not right." They too were stunned and assured me they would deal with this. When I got home that night, I told my parents what I had found at school, and we took out our copy of the S volume off the shelf and were relieved that their more recent edition did not have those caricatures in it. It has been 50 years since I began my library adventure and discovered that dated S volume. The teachers did handle it. They went to the principal, I think marching akimbo. The principal agreed to buy the newest edition that no longer had those violent images, and that older edition disappeared before even the new edition arrived. I know that this continues to echo in my teaching and learning, in my scholarship, in my vision for the church and theological education, in my deep commitment to integrate spirituality and social justice, social witness, and why I decided to answer yes to the most unexpected call in my life to the deanship of Vanderbilt Divinity School. How many versions of that S volume do we have in our academic disciplines, in our churches, in our communities? And how can I and others model what my teachers did and provide others with larger and more accurate visions of who we are and how we can be in the household of God? So it should not be surprising to hear that I began my time here with reading committee minutes, the last reaccreditation self-study, scintillating, reports, position papers, job descriptions, faculty manuals, the VDS catalog, the VDS web pages, clicking all the links, and also listening to folks, sitting down with the staff, who were the only ones around, because it was summer, and finding out what they do and who they are. And now beginning that same task, which is not so much a task as an adventure of discovery, with my faculty colleagues, listening, listening. And with more reading and listening that is sure to follow, I realized that another world opened up for me. A place that has the chutzpah to call itself the School of the Prophets. Wow. And I'm excited about becoming a part of this, a slice of this cloud of witnesses as we shape ourselves into being responsive to holding traditions and the future together. Not out of a sense that traditions are static, but with an appreciation for the fact that they are dynamic and actually morph and change, though somewhat slowly at times. And also not out of a sense that the future is some magic potion that allows us to neglect the work we must do today. These, like the eras before ours now, are both exciting and trying times. And we, like those who birthed us, are inheritors of a gift we can either squander or cherish in creation. I want to be a part of fostering a space where we think large about our disciplines as scholars, where we equip students who will enter a variety of ministries to be pastors, leaders, spiritual guides, prophetic witnesses, compassionate conversation partners with other religious traditions or differing theological viewpoints, and more. This is not a space that joins in the dismal dirge that the mainline churches are dying, if not dead. No, we are living and finding our ministries in a time when the church is being transformed. It's not going to look like Asbury Temple United Methodist Church, the little church by the side of the road where everybody's somebody in Christ is the Lord of my youth. Things have and are changing, and our task is to embrace the changes that are all around us and think carefully and faithfully about how we prepare ourselves as teachers and students to stop worrying so much about growing and be more concerned about thriving and providing models. And providing models that help all of us live out our faith more deeply. I see a space calling to us to embrace the cutting edge of faithfulness and to live into the diversity we talk about and hope for, to be relevant to the needs of people and the shifts within scholarship, to be creative and effective, hothouse of convictions where people matter more than their accomplishments. And learning is so much more than the final grade earned. I want a space where excellence is our watchword, and we realize that old paradigms may not be the most articulate ways to measure what constitutes brilliance and how we will know it when we achieve it. And also realize that every new idea or program objective may not be a good idea. And so we have to test them carefully and rigorously. Our space is the space of blood, sweat, tears, joy, and laughter. The arc of wonder and awe. The hope that is global and local. The rim bones of justice and compassion. We must not be content with the comfort of the Oberlin Divinity Quadrangle as our touchstone. It must also become our launching pad into the world of ideas, the world around us, and the deep yawning cries of a future that yearns for right relationships rather than our dismal status quo that often veers into pristine irrelevance and then into demonic navel-gazing. Standing on the launching pad means that we are willing to continue to grow, willing to put ourselves in new situations, explore new material, expand our scholarship so that we are not just pretty smart, we are very, very smart. Oh yes, all of us should step into the classroom to expand our worlds, not to prove that we are right. We fail ourselves when we treat the days here as a space for merely getting a degree or garnering academic acclaim, rather than as an opportunity to deepen our knowledge, explore the marvelous twists and turns of the holy, take all the book learning and common sense learning we can get here into the churches and agencies and communities and more that need leadership, not egos, and perhaps not id or that other thing. I urge us to not live off the dividends of a status quo faith or a below market interest rate of scholarship when the challenges loom up as they will, but to keep our minds sharp with questions that are a creative edge that lead us to this time and place, so we blend head and heart deeply, so we open ourselves up to the spectacular what if from God. Students, we admitted you because you said you wanted to be a part of a place where we back up our talk about being a school of the prophets with a challenging list of commitments that signal the kind of just and hospitable world the faculty, staff, and students seek to promote through education, proclamation, and service. Do we do this perfectly? No. Do we try? Yes. And this is why we have asked you to join us on the journey. It's quite a list, these commitments: generosity, hospitality, humility, imagination, patience, reflexivity, respect. A list, we say, that must be practiced and not just theorized. It's hard work we've invited you to join us in, but I know that the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary. So we tackle issues of poverty and economic injustice, racism and ethnocentrism, religious diversity, sexism, sexual and gender identity, and more. We've got a big tent of caring, and there's a world that needs folk who not only care, but also know how to live it out, morning by morning and day by day. So welcome, students, incoming and seasoned. Join us as we are not only the school of the prophets, we are seeking to be a wise school, a caring school, a rigorous academic school, a compassionate school, a justice-seeking school, a diverse school, a spiritually grounded school, a school that is rich with ideas and conversations and convictions and the will to try to live them out in our days, perfectly and imperfectly. And I promise you that if there are any stray S volumes here, we will work to find them and eradicate them. And to all of us, this should not be some sober and serious business that's the only way we do our work and know the way we are doing our work well and because we are so ponderous. This work of justice-based theological study and education needs something more. Grim folk who do not know how to laugh, how to enjoy times of rest and renewal, how to be a bit foolish from time to time, rarely bring in lasting justice. So we must invite ourselves to play here as well, which is why we're having a dance party tonight. To take delight in the small joys of living as well as the large ones. To not take ourselves so seriously that we forget God's laughing side. For folks like Martin Luther King Jr., the contemplative Thomas Merton, feminist theologian Letty Russell, womanist scholar Katie Geneva Cannon have all understood the power of joy and laughter in their work and living. After all, we are in Nashville, where the country music song, "Drop Kick Me Jesus Through the Goalposts of Life," has deep theological meaning. So I invite you to rewrite the notion of standing our ground by placing ourselves on the launching pad. Stand our ground, not with weapons, not with fear, not with stereotypes, not with hatred. Stand our ground with a living witness, with a curious spirit, with love and righteousness, with joy and laughter, with the world in our eye, with God before us, God behind us, God over us, God under us, and God all around us. Stand our ground as we begin to see our brokenness as a sign of hope, a sign of health a-coming, a sign of the mission that is alive and working in the world to bring the ministry of God's to life. Oh yes, we try, sometimes against the odds, to step into the world with both feet, full hearts, deep scholarship, and try to live our lives and work faithfully with passion, with precision, with rigor, and yes, with love. Not the love of ooh baby. That is for a different time and place. But the love that refuses to live as if this world is the best we can do, and we are doing all that we can do. The love that believes in God's unyielding love for us and for others and for creation. We are not at our best as a school of the prophets if we use certainty as the drumbeat of excellence. Respect of traditions and traditionings, yes, but we must lean into the mysteries of why we believe or lack belief, and the many ways these shape us and order our steps. There is much to be done when we seek to be fluent to such a dynamic faith, where there are times when we follow the scripts of faith and stand for justice. And there are times when we go completely off script and bring in a bit of the new heavens and new earth. So it's up to us to move beyond a ritualized, sterilized, codified cul-de-sac society that is on a death march to annihilation, to one that respects others and the rest of creation and puts that respect into action. From the laws we try to help shape, to the public policies we try to advocate, the education we provide, the health care that we try to make accessible, and more. Only a most holy boldness that is cradled in a compassionate witness can give us the metronome beat to guide our feet while we run this race. We are on a launching pad that not only dreams a world, we also build it with thick commitment and wise optimism, and demands the best of who we can be. It refuses to accept maudlin loathing as divine mandates when people are hungry, thirsty, outcast, naked, sick, and that whole laundry list of death and annihilation. When we turn remembering King's powerful legacy into a one-day-a-year feel-good time, paid holiday celebration of inept kumbayas and sashaying alleluias. No, my brothers and sisters, as James Baldwin reminds us, You drag your past around with you everywhere, or it drags you. So, we must be like the watcher at the gate, tending to the horizon, listening in the night, and listening for the coming day. Won't you join me?
Thank you, Dean Towns. We stand with you on this holy ground. We stand with you at this launching pad. We look toward the goalpost of the future, and we walk toward that future hand in hand with you. Thank you for being here. Let us hear these words of thanks, of courage, of hope. Eternal God, in and through whom love, power, and justice converge to find poetic and prophetic expression. We give thanks for the legacy of Vanderbilt Divinity School, a school of the prophets, a house of critical learning that for generations and for generations to come, we trust, will be blessed with women and men, young and older, who give themselves to be challenged, shaped, and recreated according to their gifts, to grace this world in countless ways. As clergy, scholars, teachers, counselors, mentors, community leaders, and caregivers, exercising wisdom to tenderly and tenaciously redeem your creation torn asunder by poverty, pollution, racism, classism, sexism, and all the isms that lead to schisms. As we give thanks first and foremost for our students and esteemed faculty who will forge relationships of trust and accountability, we pause especially to give great thanks today for the installation of the Reverend Dr. Emily Towns, who is now our beloved Dean. Grant her wisdom and courage to offer leadership to this school and to our university by the proven strength of her scholarship, administrative talent, ecumenical openness, and dedication to social justice. Give her a passion for the possible and an extra measure of spiritual audacity so that the best for her and for us is yet to come. And go with us now as we leave the service to share in the festivity of food, drink, and dance. And may Emily, Laurel, their family, and friends feel the warm embrace of this community as we indeed celebrate their arrival. Amen.
My name is Prisca Dorcas Mojica Rodriguez, and I am the Divinity School's SGA president for the 2013-2014 academic school year. Buenas noches, good evening. In this invitation to involvement, I guess I'll start off by telling you all my experience here at Vanderbilt Divinity School. VDS has been the most interesting experience because it's been the most life-changing journey of my life. Prior to becoming a Commodore, I didn't even know what Vanderbilt was. I remember when applying to Vanderbilt, I did a light 15-minute Google search on this Vanderbilt. And once I was accepted, I did an equally light Google search on Nashville. That isn't to say it isn't commentary on Vanderbilt itself, but it's more to let you know of my context. This lack of information kind of stems of me being an immigrant, and I was born in Nicaragua. English is a second language for me. I'm also a first-generation college graduate, and the first in my family history to ever pursue a master's degree. Needless to say, I had no clue about the journey I was about to embark on, and no guidance on how to get a clue. I just knew that I would, because I was built to survive. My first year and a half, the majority of my learning and growing was had outside the classroom, through thoughtful conversations with peers, advisors, faculty, staff, and administrators. Through intentional community and putting myself out there, I have met people who have really challenged me and given me books, like literally given me books that have really expanded what I knew. I remember clearly the day that I was running after Dr. Stacy Floyd Thomas, and that was the very beginning of our fruitful exchanges. I remember meeting with Dean Snar for hours in her office, just deconstructing my own ethical formation. Or Michelle Bukowski, who I met during a meeting on the photography pilot program that Cal Turner was doing. These women, with a Y, have been integral to my growth, and my most insightful interactions with them have been outside the classrooms. Or even some of my closest friends who really have pushed me to excel, I have met in parties, soccer games, and casual dinners. I say all this because VDS will educate you. It'll give you the language and the literature that will guide you towards greatness in your pastoral positions, community leadership positions, activism, organizing, and future doctoral work. But community involvement will give you life. This place will create the space for you to live out, practice, speak, and expand your knowledge. As I close this invitation for involvement, I urge you to stay in community with the people around you. The ones sitting next to you, they're the only ones who will understand this mind-blowing journey and this life-changing journey that you're in. I cannot stress this enough. You will get as much out of Vanderbilt Divinity School as you give it. So allow yourself the chance to thrive. Thank you.
Oh, to be redeemed, to be redeemed, to be redeemed, redeemed from the grip of the mighty, from the jaws of the lion, to be redeemed, this side of Zion. The river runs swift, the river runs wide. One day we'll stand up on the other side, and we'll be set free as it is foreseen, find pastures green, and he'll wash away the troubles we have seen. Oh, to be redeemed, to be redeemed from hard and greedy hands and crooked schemes, from the grip of the mighty, from the jaws of the lion. To be redeemed, this side of Zion. From the top of a mountain, we saw the promised land, like a ruby in the sun. Who can understand why we cannot get there? Why we can't arrive? We're bound to travel on, trying to mine the promise of this place before we're gone. Oh, to be redeemed, to be redeemed from kings and queens and systems and regimes, from the grip of the mighty, from the jaws of the lion. To be redeemed, this side of Zion. Oh, this side of Zion. Oh, climbing Jacob's ladder. Was it just a dream? Was it just a whisper from a voice unseen? I heard tell of a city where no one cries. We've only known the suffer, built on lies, where the low-born suffer, where the wicked win, where they get paid to sin, where the weary wait at heaven's door, hoping someone lets them in. To be redeemed, to be redeemed, to find that all we hope is what it seems, from the grip of the mighty, from the jaws of the lion. To be redeemed, to be redeemed, 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 to be redeemed, to be redeemed, this side of Zion.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. I knew that if I started naming people, I'd leave somebody out, and I'm really embarrassed to say I left a huge mass of people out, friends and colleagues from other institutions. This whole group of people over here. It's about as embarrassing as one can get when you sit down and go, well, I can't say what I said. But thank you all for coming as well. And then there's another important group of people. There are folks here from Yale who are not in this group, and I want to thank you for coming as well. It means a lot to know that the place I left still loves me as much as I love it.
Let us pray.
Eternal God, your name is from everlasting to everlasting. As we come to the close of this convocation and installation service, we give you thanks. We have come a community of celebrants, versed in many languages and disciplines, and draped in the traditions and rituals of our forebears, questioning and living beyond what they knew. As a reasoning and redeemed people, may we take their testimonies and make beauty and justice a launching pad for communal and personal fulfillment. May we see beauty as an inspiration for our courage and justice a demand of our hope. Help us to lean toward the intelligence of proportion and give our days to the pursuit of what is righteous and reasonable. Eternal God, guide us in the mundane challenges which threaten our sense of community the most. Bless the smallest actions we make toward peace. Bless the grand gestures. We thank you for the transcendent and the ineffable, which escapes all naming. We also give thanks for that which can be named, that which we call good, just, loving, and true. And now, in these final moments, please cast wide your net of blessing. Bless our communities. Bless our commitments to theological education. And please, bless the universal pursuit of education toward a more just world. All these things we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.